Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Pac-Man here, and once again I am back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, for specifically for the Nintendo DS. So, last time, we essentially did manage to win into the second cup in terms of Grand Prix mode. That's what appears to be the Graffiti Cup. And as far as for our performance, as far as that cup goes, it was okay. I mean, 3 tracks in particular, which appears to be should be in Downtown, Outer Forest, and Turpine Loop, is going pretty good, except Treetops, mainly because, as far as I'm aware, it didn't go too well because of all that. A lot of walls I keep on bumping into, and on top of all that stuff though, wonky drift physics, and to top of all that stuff though, as you probably would expect, the rubber banding AI decides to come into play again. So because of that though, and miserably though, is about the fact that we ended up in 6th place, which means last place. So because of that, I found it to be very, very, very embarrassing indeed. But luckily though, we still managed to claim our glorious trophy at the end, and we are usually won by 1 point from Knuckles. And as a result though, is about the fact I feel like is actually a very incredible victory. So as a result though, yeah, everything else checks out there. So today, for this video, is that we are about to be going into the next cup in the game, in terms of the DS version that is, and that's what appears to be the Egg Cup. So much to the point, the racer I'm going to be selecting this time, that's what appears to be, if you couldn't tell already, we are selecting Amy Rose this time, because no matter what though, conveniently enough though, is about the fact I, unfortunately though, didn't get a chance to unlock new characters just yet, ranging from Ooh La La from Space Channel 5, so I figured about the fact that once we're able to actually continue our progress, in terms of Grand Prix mode, hopefully though if I get some more Sega Miles and Drain at some point, then obviously though I will try to able to actually go ahead and unlock some more characters at some point. So anyway, so the first track we're going to be running to in terms of Egg Cup, and that's what it appears to be. We're going back into Blizzard Castle in journey forms of Rampart Road. So no matter what though, I'm pretty sure about the fact that every single track in the entire cup itself, I'm pretty sure the track layout may look a bit exactly identical to the console version, but there are some slight alterations, like I said before, due to the forms of handheld limitations. Like I've already on about that about a couple of times. So now I'm sure enough though is about the fact with this particular track in general, it is still possible you can able to actually make your way to that alternate pathway, as you can tell. But ultimately though is about the fact that in order to do that this time, so I'm pretty sure you need speed shoes in order to able to make it for that point. And also, not to mention though, during the forms of this particular part right here, I would not recommend trying to do some drifting, because otherwise you'll slid all over the place, and so much to the point you will fall off a couple of times like I just did. So because of that though, that's also another one of those embarrassing parts for this particular version to me anyway, at the very least. So but I digress. So yeah, a few things I want to talk about this is though, and that's what it appears to be for the fact that, well, today's date is of course the 12th of April today, in some cases in 2025 today. Only 2 more days to go folks, until Sonic the Hedgehog 3 the movie is definitely coming to DVD and Blu-ray, including 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray. It's going to be coming until 2 days from now, specifically for those who live in the UK, whilst meanwhile in America has to wait until specifically 3 days. So as a result though, yeah, it's getting pretty close for this point folks, until we're able to actually rewatch the amazing Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie over and over and over again, because I really enjoy the film so much, which is especially noticeable concerning for the fact that we are so looking forward to see what's going to be up next in terms of Sonic movie cinematic universe. So because of that though, yeah, everything else will become to expect basically. So anywho, so also as far as I'm aware about the fact that yes, eventually at some point until next week, I will definitely try to able to pre-order the first 2 things for the sake of Nintendo Switch 2, and as a result though, again, as far as what Maxi has already on about it since in yesterday's video of Paper Mario, that it is rather unfortunate for us that we've never actually get a chance to pre-order the Nintendo Switch 2 console, which means about the fact that we have to wait for a couple of months time until eventually it decides to able to go on to restocking departments, although it's even bad enough in Journey Falls up in the UK, But not just, well, usually relatively speaking, it was about the fact the UK version has already been out of stock quite ridiculously fast, much like the forms of how it does it back in 5 years prior, when it comes to both not only the PlayStation 5, but alongside with the forms of the Xbox Series X systems as well. So relatively speaking, that was about the fact I'm really hoping about the fact that it will not be nearly as complicated compared to the forms of how it does it back in 2020, that is. So, but I digress. So, there's also another thing else worth noting for, actually, is about the fact that, yes, I did manage to able to research upon, usually for the sake of the forms of some Switch 1 games can still be playable on Nintendo Switch 2, but here's the thing though, it does still manage to require a singular Joy-Con in order to able to actually play a certain amount of titles onto, you know, Nintendo Switch 2. And I found a couple of them that can be playable with a singular Joy-Con, or multiple Joy-Cons to be more specifically, and those games are Ring Fit Adventure for the sake of the forms of that particular ring accessory, and on top of that, 1-2 Switch, and Everybody 1-2 Switch, Game Builder Garage, Nintendo Switch Sports, WarioWare Move It. So at the very least about the fact that WarioWare Move It, it is definitely going to be on backwards compatibility for Nintendo Switch 2, despite the fact that you can't use your Joy-Con 2 controllers for that matter. So because as far as I'm aware, Joy-Con 2 controllers is missing the actual IR sensor thing. So because of that though, yeah, you get the idea for this point. And meanwhile, we've also got Nintendo Labo within not only 1, not 2, but 3, which appears to be Toy-Con number 1, Variety Kit, Toy-Con number 2, Robot Kit, and finally Toy-Con number 3, Robot, or specifically Vehicle Kit, because I keep on thinking about something else, because as you probably already expect, that the virtual reality kit is not compatible due to the faults of Nintendo Switch 2 on handheld mode anyway, or tabletop mode for that matter, is a little bit bigger in comparison to the regular Switch models. So yeah, that begs the question for that particular point worth noting for. So, oh yeah, in terms of the forms of the specific tracks that we're going to be getting into, in terms of Egg Cup for that matter, the first track we've already experienced with, and that's what appears to be Rampart Road. And the second track we're going into right now, which appears to be Dark Arsenal. And the third track will have to be by the forms of Jump Parade. I think, kind of think about it though, Jump Parade itself is actually the only track in terms of based off from some of the Amigo doesn't get any name changes, or in some cases the track layouts changed. So because as far as I'm aware, there's only like 2 tracks that's only exclusive to the DS version, plus with the forms of the iOS version as well, if you also want to count that. So relatively speaking, I was about the fact that when it comes to like other racetracks in particular, usually for the majority of them based off of the likes of Jet Set Radio Future themes, obviously those about the fact that the entire track layout is basically altered, mainly because, as I said this before, due to handheld's limitations, both on the DS and as well as the iOS version as well, I guess. So, and yeah, as far as I'm aware, is about the fact that the iOS version does manage to forces you to use touchscreen controls, so I won't be too surprised about this particular technology for that point. So, anyway. Oh yeah, there's also another thing else I would like to explain to you all, is about the fact that apparently though, we actually get ourselves a new updated version of that particular video has already been in existence, all thanks to the faults of the parental controls. So as a result though, that when it comes to the faults of how the fact that after when Nintendo Switch 2 has finally gets its more details and all that stuff, well, it seems to be more specifically though, not too while ago, that we actually got ourselves the updated video in terms of the faults of Nintendo Switch parental controls, which as a result, the concept remains the same, except the animations, especially noticeable with Bowser Jr. and Bowser in particular, they all got updated, and on top of all that stuff though, there are some new animations here and there as well, specifically for Bowser, so yeah, that's actually quite interesting. And on top of that, it may look like an application logo has also been updated as well, because normally in Switch 1, obviously though it actually contains white and orange colors, so now on Nintendo Switch 2, it's all basically both white and red to able to represent, to match the forms of the specific color tone in terms of not only for Nintendo Switch 1, but as well as Nintendo Switch 2 as well. So either way, I guess that makes sense for the sake of the phones to try to able to make things a little bit more updated. Not only in terms of the phones of some veterans, but also with the phones of newcomers as well, for those of you who want to know what parental control does. So as a result, and also not to mention though is about the fact that when it comes to the gameplay footage has been shown between both of those videos in terms of the actual comparison. In Switch 1 parental controls, it actually shows us the gameplay footage of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, whilst meanwhile for Nintendo Switch 2, parental controls, obviously though they've now shown us some footage of Mario Kart World. And speaking of Mario Kart World, about the fact that, well, conveniently enough, we haven't got that long left now until we finally get a chance to hear more about Mario Kart World in terms of the forms of some game content, and on top of that, some more, potentially more playable characters will be shown on here. Well, we'll have to wait and see what happens to join at some point until next Thursday, specifically on the 17th of April. So that means about the fact that we've only got about approximately 5 days to go until, excuse me, the Mario Kart World Direct will be up. So, yeah, that should be exciting. So, anyways, let's move on now to Jump Parade, based off, you know, some of the Amigo. And as far as I'm aware, the track layout is basically identical to the console version. But one thing I have to admit though right away is that the actual physics, especially noticeable with the actual momentum, if you try to keep on like jumping over gaps and stuff like that, it's not exactly relevant to me. Because as far as I'm aware, that if we come towards the edge of this particular part right there, sometimes the actual specific physics just somehow drops a bit too fast for my liking. Because unlike the console version, that you're able to actually get some bit of few seconds until you're able to pull off certain tricks to get some boosts and what have you. But maybe it's just me anyway, because I, again, haven't exactly played that much of this version compared to the console versions to me anyway, so. But I digress. So, and it's also worth noting for too, speaking of which, in regards to the forms of Mario Kart World, it may look like that unlike the forms of how it does it in Mario Kart 8/Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, that if you're trying to go for a kart combinations, basically though it actually shows us 5 different stats ranging from speed, acceleration, weight, and handling, as well as the forms of grip or traction for the 5th category. Well, it may look like that when it comes to the forms of Mario Kart World, not only does it take away one of the status, but it's also about the fact that the kart customization options are now gone. And as a result, we're going back into the forms of similar routes when it comes to likely choosing your very own karts or bikes essentially. Ever since in not only Mario Kart DS and same lives with Mario Kart Double Dash as well, and heck, even especially noticeable since Mario Kart Wii, because in Mario Kart 7 they somehow introduced into ourselves the kart customization options. So in Mario Kart World, that we're going back into the traditional style with all that choosing your very own karts as well as bikes essentially as well. So yeah, I totally appreciate about the fact that we're actually going backwards for a little while. So as a result though, I totally appreciate about that. So, and it seems to be more specifically though is about the fact that there's only 4 status this time around when it comes to checking yourselves not only karts but as well as bikes as well. So for instance, we still have speed, acceleration, weight, and handling, but there's no grip or traction this time, because my guess is that in free roam mode, you can able to actually drive into any spots anywhere. So no matter what though, it's about the fact that we no longer try to slow down in doing the forms of some racetracks. So yeah, that's actually quite interesting. So, and meanwhile, in terms of the forms of another subject I would like to point out, is about the fact that yes indeed, much like the forms of how it does it for the Nintendo 64 application for Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, there are some games for the Nintendo GameCube is going to be coming to Nintendo Switch 2 for its, you know, Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack. Some games will support widescreen, just like the forms of how it does it for the likes of, you know, some Nintendo 64 games. So, I've only found 2 of them. They only support widescreen support at the moment, which appears to be not only Soul Calibur 2, but alongside with F-Zero GX as well. And maybe potentially there's going to be a third one is going to be on its way. By the looks of all that stuff though, that it may look like that Super Mario Strikers or Mario Smash Football, if you lived in European countries, also supports widescreen. So because of that though, I'm sure about the fact that it'll be a lot more interesting to see widescreen displays and all that stuff. So yeah, that's pretty cool essentially. So anyways, and it's also worth knowing for it too, is about the fact that out of nowhere, after when the actual Nintendo Switch 2 finally gets the release date, alongside with the forms of some bunch of games have been revealed, well, conveniently enough, out of nowhere, that we're about to be getting a yet another version of Sonic X Shadow Generations, believe it or not. Which, yes, Sonic X Shadow Generations is coming to Nintendo Switch 2 as a standalone release, or essentially the upgraded version or something like that. I mean, it hasn't been confirmed the release date yet, but let me tell you, I was not expecting to see yet another version of Sonic X Shadow Generations is coming, but this time on a different platform, so I suppose that'll be a perfect opportunity to able to get ourselves the fourth version of the exact same game, but with the forms of higher resolution and even much more better frame rate, specifically not only with Sonic Generations Remaster, but as well as the forms of Shadow Generations I was hoping for anyway. So generally speaking, I was about the fact that if that particular version of the game comes out, I honestly don't mind getting that particular fourth and probably the final version of the game anyway, because let's face it though, that we've basically simply given up on getting not only PlayStation 5, but alongside with Xbox Series X now, because now that Nintendo Switch 2 was now a thing, of course. So I thought to myself, yeah, I think probably 4 versions might be enough as it is. So at least that's to me anyway, because still, we really enjoy the game still, either on the Nintendo Switch 1 or Xbox systems, and heck, even with the PlayStation 4 versions to top it off. So relatively speaking, I was about the fact that, yeah, I don't mind replaying the game again, but on a different platform, usually for Nintendo Switch 2 anyway. So yeah, that'll be a cool way to able to experience the game again. So, but this time on, you know, much more comfortable grip with all that bigger buttons on handheld mode and etc. etc. So, although I'm not entirely sure about the fact that you still need to try to buy the actual DLC sold separately though, which if that's the case, then obviously though, there goes all of my cash again. So, but still, no matter what though, is about the fact that we still need to try to think about the forms of trying to pre-order the first 2 Nintendo Switch things at this point in time, because as far as you can definitely tell, that it hasn't been confirmed the actual release date yet for Sonic X Shadow Generations for Nintendo Switch 2. It did say it's about to be coming up and during at some point in this year, but we're not entirely sure when exactly. But yeah, it's kind of bizarre about the fact that that particular version is going to be coming out the exact same year as in Sonic Racing Cross Worlds in multiple platforms. I'm not entirely sure if the Switch version might also count, but then again, though, we'll have to wait and see what happens, because it's been about a couple of weeks ago since we've last heard more about Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, so hopefully we'll hear more about it probably at some point in the next couple of months or weeks, or essentially in Summer Game Fest, so we shall wait and see. So with that being said folks, it's that we get endings of this point right here, so join me next time for more Let's Play of Sonic and SEGA All-Stars Racing for the Nintendo DS version. It's that we're about to be going into the 4th Cup in Grand Prix, which appears to be the Horror Cup. So, and conveniently enough, we're now onto the halfway point in terms of Grand Prix mode. So yeah, that's going to be exciting. So I'll see you guys until tomorrow. Later, fellas.